Good morning, Mike. This is Eric. You can go ahead and begin.
All right. I'm filling in for Steve today. My name is Mike Sutton, and for those of you that may not know me, with the town of Gilbert. So I'd just like to welcome you out, the members of the MAG ITS Transportation Systems Committee. This meeting is now called to order. For those who are around the table, please make sure you turn on your microphones when speaking. For those that are participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question, just so you can be identified. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card, which is located on the information table in the hallway, and give it to a member of MAG staff. If you've parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table by the door. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see a staff member for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, our Vice Chair. I will call your name. Please indicate whether you are present for the record. We'll start online or in person. Sergeant Michael Hunt.
Present.
Dr. Shusong Zhou.
Present.
Kieran Jordan.
Present.
We'll go ahead and start online next. I have Tony Abel.
Present.
Susan Anderson.
I'm present.
Micah Henry in for City of Mesa.
Present.
Alyssa Dahl.
Good morning. I'm here.
Kathy Hollow.
Yes, good morning.
David Lucas.
Here.
Raquel Schatz.
Here.
Mike Sutton.
Here.
John Kraft in for Christopher Wanamaker.
Here.
Tessa Wessel.
Here.
John Willett.
Present.
Marty Zeke.
Present.
Is there anyone I have missed?
Ward Stanford with Avondale. I just got on, so sorry for being late.
Thank you, Ward.
And then Hugh Biak, City Goodyear.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Mr. Vice Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is a call to attendance. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item, unless the committee requests an exception to this time limit. I'm not sure if we've received any requests to speak at this time.
Mr. Vice Chair, no public comments have been received for this item or any other item on the agenda.
Thank you. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website 1 hour prior to the meeting. Do we have any written comments for this item?
Mr. Vice Chair, as of today, no written comments have been received.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Our next item is the approval of the December 7th, 2022 meeting minutes. If everyone wants to just take a moment to try to review those, they were sent out in an email. And if anyone does have any revisions or comments on those meeting minutes, feel free to, pop in and make us aware of them. if there are no comments at any time, if we could get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from any of the committee members.
Mike, it's, oh, go ahead.
Motion to approve, please.
Mike, it's Kathy. I'll second it.
Sounds good. So we have a motion from John to approve the meeting minutes, and then Catherine went ahead and seconded it. Now, can we have a vote from the room? Those in favor, say aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed, say nay. This is just for the room, those present in the room.
Oh.
That's okay. You didn't make a mistake. Now, with that, we'll go ahead and take a roll call of the members that are here online. If Eric, you want to go ahead and take that over for your individual votes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. When I call your name, please indicate how you vote. Tony Abbo.
I abstain as I was not on the previous meeting.
Thank you. Susan Anderson.
Approve.
Hugh Bialk.
Approve.
Micah Henry for City Mesa.
I approve the minutes.
Alyssa Dahl.
Approve.
Kathy Hollow.
Approve.
Bruce Littleton. David Lucas.
Aye.
Raquel Schatz.
Aye.
Ward Stanford.
I'll have to abstain because I was only there for part of the meeting.
Thank you. John Kraft in for Christopher Wanamaker.
Aye.
Tessa Wessel.
Aye.
John Willett.
Approve.
Marty Zeke.
Approve.
And Mr. Vice Chair, how do you vote?
I approve as well.
Is there anyone that I have missed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Eric. Our next item is a report for the MAG Tismo Program Manager, Jeff Jenk. This item is for information and discussion. I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Happy New Year to the members of the ITS committee. The first item on my report is the federal updates. As usual, I would like to introduce Karen Jordan from the Arizona FHWA division to give this report. And I heard that he is bringing more federal dollar to the region.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, that's true. The Biden-Harris administration has announced $1.5 billion available through the 2023 Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE, grant for critical freight and passenger transportation infrastructure projects. Link along with the notice of funding, and applications are due by February 28th. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Karen. So on the screen, you could see the announcements, the hyperlink to the announcement, as well as the hyperlink to the NOFO, the actual application form. Right. Next slide, please. This one is just a reminder that we have a call for project ongoing. The call for project was released on December 1st. This is for a total of $9.4 million of CMEC funding. These are the leftover from the previous run of the call for project. The funding is available in two funding buckets. The ICM, Integrated Corridor Management, for $4 million, as well as Local Priority Corridor for $5.4 million. And these money are meant to be programmed for FY 2025. There was an application workshop held by Patrick Stone, MAC TIP supervisor, and this was held on December 14th. And in that workshop, we have went through the overall requirements And also remind everyone, to submit your, or to reach out to MAC for any questions that you might have in developing your application. Also remind you on all these critical time points that the member agency will need to participate. So upcoming, the application is due 10 a.m. Friday, January 13th, which is next week, I believe. Next slide, please. So this is again the critical time point that would involve the ITS committee members. We're looking at the next time point being January 20th. After we receive your applications, we will take a little time reviewing those applications for any errors that there might be. And then on January 20th, you'll receive a notice from us that we have posted these applications on MAC website available for review. The next time point is the next ITS committee meeting, which is a special committee meeting meant for the application presentations. Each proposed project will have 5 minutes to describe the project and entertain any questions that it might have from the committee members. After the ITS committee meeting on February 1st, you will have 2 weeks to finalize and submit your qualitative evaluation score back to MAC. Then again, the overall process, the evaluation also involved the MAC air quality group's separate evaluation on the air quality scores. And then the next target is the March 1st ITS committee. That's when we will review the final ranking of those projects and then recommend the selected project. As you know, that after that, we'll have to escalate through the chains of command. Our ultimate target is the regional council. That's for the April 26th. After that, then we have money in the tip. Next slide, please. This is another quick update for the ICM planning study. So this is the money set aside in the MAC SMNO plan to conduct ICM planning for the entire region. And as I reported earlier, that this effort of MAC, I'm going to be focusing primarily on the local response. And so there's a 2-phase approach. First phase is being conducted right now is a preliminary assessment of the feasibility, meaning after this study, we will find out on the map that, where these ICM planning in terms of local responses will be needed. And this task is going to be carried out by ITERIS. There was a kickoff meeting held with the MAC staff on December 15th. The project period is from December through March. As you could see, that this is a short fuse effort. It's preliminary assessment. So we're urging your cooperations that you should be start getting contact from ITERIS at Tricia board on arranging the meeting with you. And then the next bullet is the outcome of this project will be documented that where the needs and requirements are and where perhaps the ICM might not be needed. And so with that, we will have a better idea as to what should go into the phase 2, which is actually developing the ICM plan. And that next phase going to take place sometimes around April. It's going to take about 12 months. Next slide, please. This is the TSOP project update. TSOP is going every year But the last year that we have done the 2 call for project. So this update is on the second round of the call for project that we had 7 project applications approved and has been in the chain of command awaiting for the final approval. So the update is that that final approval should come in this month. Due to the holiday, there were a number of cancellation of other policy committees. So by end of this month, we should have the final approval. That means that we could reach out to the on-call consultant to start developing the task order. The performance period is going to be February through June. Next slide, please. This slide is an update on the fiber upgrade task force. Little overview, especially for the new committee members. There are regular funding identified for fiber upgrade for the region. And this task is carried out by the MEC RCN program, and we have our program manager, Ryan Gish, here in the audience. So Ryan is spearheading this task force that in the previous year, they have identified the project. And so the first update for you today is that the previous year's project, the Queen Creek, the fiber has been installed, but as you recall that there's a lot of supply chain issues, and then there's a labor issue finding the contractor availability to do the job. But all this is coming to the end of the tunnel. We're looking at the final core and the connection of Queen Creek to Mesa. This will take place on January 9th. The next one is we're going to have another task force meeting that has been scheduled for January 24th. And the primary goal is to provide the overall logistics on, and thanks to the foresight of the task force that due to this supply chain issue, they were pre-ordering these fibers preemptively. And so they're going to talk about those, and as well as trying to identify the new project for the upcoming fiscal year. With that, it concludes my report. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay. Are there any questions from anyone on the information presented by Jeff?
No, just yes, Dr. Zhao.
Yeah, so Jeff, I just want to verify. Previously, we also talked about regional competitive program. So this is the same as this TIP program.
Yes, this is the yes. I think we use many different terminology describing the same thing. This TIP call for project is a competitive one. That means it's eligible to all member agencies, and it's the competitive call for project.
I also recall you briefly mentioned there's a $2.3 million left, or is it a little bit different from the numbers you mentioned?
Eric, if you could flip back to that slide. I don't know where that 2.3 come from. Because I hear it. Yeah, so and it could be our doing causing the confusion. Before we settle with this $9.4 million competitive call for project, there was a series of working group meeting. We were talking about the $4 million, which was originally programmed for the static wayfinding sign that we see no need for this region. And then there has been a series of discussion and final ruling came from MAC TIP supervisor, program test supervisor, that those money need to go into a competitive culvert project. And so I do not recall the $2.3 million. There may be some, interim discussion somewhere. Right. Since we're on the tip, we would like to urge all of you who is interested in proposing to act early. Don't wait for the last minute. That there are some requirements like the shapefile and all other things. You know, if you wait till last minute, usually you has a high possibility of running into some snag. So we're here to help. So feel free to reach out to us. And if you have any questions.
Okay, so if anyone has any other questions, you know, for Jeff after the meeting, feel free to reach out to him and I'm sure he'll be happy, you know, to answer anything that may come up or at least try to. Item number 5 is a presentation providing an update on the MAG Regional ITS Inventory and Performance Measurement Study Update. This will be presented by Deanna and Doug from Kimley Horn and Associates. This item is for information and discussion. Before we start the presentation, I'd like to invite Jeff to present a brief overview of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members. This is a strategically important project for the MAC TISMO program. As this title suggests that this will help us identify and develop a system and the process to start systematically collecting some regional ITS inventory data. And we have a very noble goal for that. We're hoping that this would help with our future programming activity as we are, you know, literally, you know, developing project millions of dollars. So this is a good piece of information. So next slide, please. And the next slide. So this is the brief outline. This is a two-step process that this project is just a planning study. So today you will hear the conclusion and the recommendation from this planning study. We'll briefly touch on the implementation that will soon follow after this project in the beginning of the year. And so today I'm happy to have Kimley Horn and Associate, who has conducted this study, just to talk about all the planning activity that took place and the major takeaways. And more importantly is how it lead to the identification or recommendation of our deployment options. So with that, I think I have two more slides. Next slide, please. Okay, so the objective or the purpose of the project is quite intuitive, that we're a regional planning agency where the federal dollar as well as the local funding funnel through us through the project development and activity such as the culvert project. To know where things are is just kind of intuitive. So objective of this particular planning study is really we want to research all the options out there. Okay, that include because the context is ITS. ITS has a lot of systems involved. We have asked Kimley Horn to specifically looking into the feasibility of some kind of data integration approach to obtaining those data. And then we, out of this study, I was hoping to get, and I've got the functional requirements that I can use for this next phase that will go out for bid for the actual implementation and development of the product of the system. So in this presentation, you will hear that how we prioritize all the things that we could do and how we reach out to this current recommendation. The next slide, please. So it's not limited to these four, but to me, I mean, the knowing what's deployed in the region can allow us to do some gap analysis from a regional perspective. And deployment tracking is just another way of saying, what do we have? And, you know, I mean, to show the progress and our achievements to our decision maker for the future funding. As well as the better investment decision that implies we will use that within MAC and utilize this information as part of, say, the project identification selection process. And then finally, these are good informations that can be utilized by other planning functions in MAC. Things like traffic signal, those are constantly needed by the modeling group of the MAC. So with that, that concludes my quite lengthy overview. I would like to turn this presentation to Doug.
Thanks, Jeff. Welcome to everyone, members of the MAG ITS committee. I'm Douglas Getman from Kimley Horn. We've been fortunate to support Jeff and the MAG staff on this project over about the last year or so, along with Deanna Hasse here in the room with us, and Sarah Simpson from United Civil Group also supported us in doing some of the survey activities, reaching out to many of the local agencies on the phone and the ones that may not have been able to be here today. So let's see if this is going to work. How about next slide? So there are three parts to the project, three task reports that will all be consolidated into, you know, one deliverable that you guys will be able to access here in the next month or 6 weeks or so as MAG prepares the final pieces. The first task was the state of practice review. The second task was to research the options for how do we get these data attributes for all the different ITS assets that the local agencies have from each agency. And there's several options for that. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then the final task was to develop the ConOps, the requirements, and the system implementation plan for phase 2 to implement the software system. Next. Try one more time. User error. So as Jeff mentioned, and if you remember the tip money that he mentioned, was it 9.4 million or whatever that number was, the way that that's done, the way the evaluation of projects is done now is, you know, qualitative voting by the member agencies. We don't really have a good way at this time to do any kind of quantitative assessment of project effectiveness. And as Jeff was alluding to, you know, gap analysis is important. Well, if we don't know, if let's say one of the TIP projects is to implement transit signal priority on a corridor, if we don't know where transit signal priority is elsewhere in the region, how do we know that that's going to be useful or effective? Is that on the right routes? And that may not be the best example because we don't have transit priority in the region on a large scale today, but that's the kind of thing we're trying to do by collecting ITS asset inventory from all the agencies in the region into one spot. So the first task was to essentially talk to all of you, your local agencies, and get information about what systems you use internally to track your ITS assets. And then the other component was to talk to other MPOs around the country see what they're doing and what they're sort of, how they're dealing with this issue. Next. So we sent out an RFI to several MPOs across the country. We received responses from 10 different agencies that you can read there on the screen. I won't read them to you. The ones that are highlighted in blue are the ones that we selected to do a more in-depth interview with. We spent about an hour to an hour and a half, and maybe in one situation more like 2 hours, talking with their staff, MAG staff, as well as Deanna and myself, about sort of the challenges they face, the successes they've had. You know, what do they think about this idea of collecting ITS asset inventory into a regional repository? Next. So I'm also not going to read all of these bullets to you. You can read them for yourself, but I've got a couple of things I just want to bring up as sort of key highlights. On the right-hand side, you know, the sort of disappointing part is that we couldn't identify an MPO that has sort of a system in place that automatically collects this kind of asset tracking information from multiple agencies into one repository. And there's a few good reasons for that. You know, there's lots of different kinds of ATMS solutions. There's lots of kinds of camera control systems, DMS control systems. So the number of possible automated integrations is fairly large. So almost all of the agencies that we talk to are collecting this asset inventory information from their local agency members manually, and you know, at most once per year, and more often than not, even less frequent than that. So we were hoping to have sort of a head start. You know, someone would give us some clues, give us a head start on how to do this automation part, but we couldn't really identify there. The other one on the positive side is everyone, sort of all the MPOs we talked to, were encouraged by this effort that MAG is undertaking to sort of develop an automated process to get all this kind of thing into one regional repository. Because if we can do it in the MAG region, it can be done essentially anywhere in the country. So in a future, and you'll see this as we go through the presentation, sort of deferring the concept of automation for a future phase, because we've got to sort of walk before we can run, essentially. The other thing to bring up or to mention about the positives is that at least 2 of the other MPOs we talked to are considering what I call, you know, carrot or stick kind of rules, that if you want to get money out of the tip, you would be required to update your ITS asset inventory in the regional system, or to provide a new set of asset information to the MPO. And you know, it's not really like if you don't do it, it's kind of that you don't get any money, but it's more of a encouragement as a carrot to help people, you know, make those updates. Next. So that was the part about surveying the MPOs. The second task is about the local agencies, all of you on the phone, and folks that we talked to and sent out surveys to. Reviewing, then we got in depth and reviewed the sort of tracking processes of several of the MAG agencies. See those 4 agencies on the screen there, to see what they're doing with GIS, see what they're doing with spreadsheets, how do they use their ATMS solution, what other ways are they tracking ITS inventory. And then we sort of dove deeper into how does the list of things that MAG would want to track line up with this national standard called TMDD, the Traffic Management Data Dictionary, which is sort of the best possible solution for commonality of collecting these asset attributes from lots of different agencies. So we looked into that, and then did a fair amount of research, maybe not how Zusong would define research, but sort of investigative reporting on different ways that we might automate data exchanges, if that to be in the future. Next. So this is an eye chart. I'm not going to read any of this information for you, but this will be in the final report that lists the ITS assets, quantities, ATMS solutions, and so on for all of the member agencies. So that was part of task 2, was to do this survey and collect all of this sort of state of the region into one place. Next. So TMDD has a fairly structured way that ITS assets are described. And I'll show you a table here on the next slide that defines these different categories. Green elements would be likely necessary for an asset inventory. Yellow is going to show things that might be of interest to MAG and is worthy of further discussion. Orange is not likely of interest and blue is not currently supported. So go to the next example here. So this is what, and I'm not going to read all of these to you either, but the way that that's structured in the traffic management data dictionary is you have this header, which is shown at the top, which every asset type shares the same attribute list. And then the second part below it would be things that MAG would want to add, the ones that are shown in blue, which is primarily to support the evaluation of projects in the SMO program. So when was something funded? What project number was it funded under? What was the call for projects number and so on? So it's not necessarily that we want to go back in time and identify like, when did you get, this emergency vehicle preemption widget at signal 1, 2, 3, 4, in 2004 versus 2005. It's more to going forward after we implement the system and have the asset repository up and running, then that kind of thing would be populated moving forward. Next. So as I mentioned, the other part of task 2 was to identify how can we automate this process if possible. And so as we went through the sort of investigative reporting, of this task, lots of challenges arise. I'm not going to, again, read all of these bullets to you, but a few things to mention is, it's just understandable that each of the local agencies are tracking things in different ways. For example, the city of Phoenix likes to hook all of the ITS assets to a pole. And that's neither right nor wrong, but that's the way it's done. So they start with a pole and then you get to a device. City of Mesa or some other place, they start with the signal, and then poles are members of the signal asset class. And that's the kind of thing that it might sound easy to solve, but in terms of automated data sharing, that's the kind of things that makes database exchanges a little bit sticky. So those are the kind of things that make it hard. On the positive side, even though there are multiple ATMS solutions used in the region, there's only so many vendors of these systems, Kits and Centrax and MaxView and so on. So if we did a sort of TMDD implementation that would automatically share the asset inventory from the ATMS to the MAG repository, it only has to be done a few times, not hundreds of times. But there are that is work that has to be done, and it's not trivial, and it's expensive as well. So there's lots of challenges to automation, and that kind of leads us to the sort of cumulative findings next year. That we can't go forward with automated data sharing on day 1 or in phase 1 of the implementation of the regional repository. So this is essentially what the schedule of activities will be for phase 2. You saw a snapshot of the ITS device type attribute lists, and that will be presented to all the local agencies for review here starting in a few months, and discuss how easy or how hard it will be to populate some of those elements into your existing methods, whether that be a GIS layer or a spreadsheet or in your ATMS solution or solutions. And then moving forward to implementing a manual process for importing the information obtained from each of the local agencies into the regional database. Next. So task 3 had 3 components, developing the concept of operations for how the regional repository database and data sharing system will work. The second one is the development plan and an estimate of probable cost for the different phases, manual implementation, and so on. And then a phase 2 scope of work for Jeff to use to solicit proposals here in March or April, I believe, for implementation of the software itself. Next. So here's the preliminary list of data attributes. Again, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but it's not intended to read all of this right now. When phase 2 begins, that will be the opportunity for the local agencies to review and comment on the different elements and weigh in on the difficulty or ease of providing this kind of status information to not real-time status, but attribute information to MAG. Next. Another important element of the ConOps is the definition of roles and responsibilities. What portions does the local agency staff need to do? What will MAG be doing? What can consultants, not just Kimley Horn, but others in the region, supporting both locals and MAG to populate the information, populate the data, do analysis, look at future scenarios and things. And then we stayed away from talking about an agreement versus for local agencies with MAG and talking about the process of consent. We don't want to get this to the sort of MAG lawyer to city lawyer level, because this is something that we can really handle on the Mike Sutton to Jeff Jank level with consent versus some kind of a IGA or so on. Next. So this is, every software project has to have an architecture picture with a bunch of boxes and lines. So here's our box and line diagram for the regional repository. There are 5 basic elements to the system. The first one you can see the legend there on the left, and I've identified the 5 pieces in the boxes there in the middle to the right. So the first one is obviously the databases that all of the local agencies maintain internally. So that's essentially 3 different kinds of storage methods, spreadsheets, GIS layers, and databases, traditional databases or RDBMS systems. The second one is the ingestion module, and the main feature of that module is that it will be able to, or it should be able to, support multiple formats. So you, local agency, will not be required to conform 100% to the same kinds of tracking structures in every agency. So there'll be some flexibility there that you can do things the way you would like to do them internally. And then that ingestion module will harmonize those differences into the common MAG format. The third part is data editing. So local agencies as well as MAG staff will have access to that to update the information. So if you don't track ITS assets currently today, or you don't track a certain type in a way that you would like, you could track your own assets in the MAG regional repository if you like. And the other purpose of the data editing module is for reconciliation of differences. So things like if you retire a traffic signal, turn a traffic signal into a roundabout, it gets deleted from the asset list. There'll be a way to reconcile that, as well as things that you add to the system, new cameras, new fiber lines, whatnot, that will be able to be reconciled as well. The third element on the, that is the third element. Fourth element would be the data visualization part. So maps and charts and graphs and tables and things that you'd be able to summarize and filter in different ways to look at assets across the region or in your own region in different ways to cut it up. There'll be two elements to that. One will be completely public facing with no login access that sort of essentially anyone would be able to do basic functions. And then the login private side of the application for MAG and agency staff to do the more detailed stuff as well as data editing. Data editing would not be something that would be exposed to the public. And then the final piece is to have an export. So once you've filtered through these different layers and things that you want to look at a corridor, you want to look at a region, you want to look at 10 miles or let's say 3 miles from the Broadway curve construction project, something like that. Those filters can then be exported as layers and primarily for use with the other MAG analysis tools, which GeoCortex, and I always forget the name of that other one. But there's a new one that Ted Brown and his team in the GIS group is using. So the main purpose of the export module is to get that ITS asset data in harmonized with other MAG data layers. Next. So this just is a snippet from the system requirements table. Probably most of you have dealt with these kind of things before. This is really just memorializing the narrative concept of operations into a set of statements that can be checked off essentially as they're implemented and assigned to development phases. Next. So we've identified a phased approach for the implementation based on the availability of funding and time and functionality. So phase one will be the implementation of a manual process for importing the ITS asset layers from each of the local agencies and the website tools for doing this filtering and evaluation, filtering and visualization of assets in the region and so on. We spent a fair amount of time talking about what we should do for performance metrics and in supporting this evaluation of SMO system management and operation investments. And essentially we decided that that would probably be best, or MAG decided that it would be best to push that into phase two. So first we get all the information in, and then let's identify exactly the kind of features and functionality we need to present report cards and look at regional ITS investment values, things of that nature in phase two. And then phase three, which may or may not be indefinitely deferred based on the cost and complexity, would be automation, automating the data exchange with ATMS and GIS systems so that local agencies don't have to do as much to consolidate these asset inventory lists and layers and things and share them with MAG every 6 months or 1 year. So that's put off. As I mentioned earlier, the other MPOs we talked to seemed fairly interested in this kind of concept and maybe in some kind of a pooled fund type of effort. Because every region in the United States experiences this exact problem, and it's even exacerbated in some regions like the Bay Area or Los Angeles County, where they have 100. In the Bay Area, I think it's 120 something plus, and LA is like 88 agencies. So we got a lot of agencies in Phoenix, in the Valley. They've got almost 10 times as many. So the problem is not unique to MAG for sure. So there was some interest in sort of looking at this on a pooled fund kind of concept in the future. Next. So this is finalizing the next steps is finalize the draft scope of work. We presented that to Jeff just a couple of weeks ago, right before Christmas time. Jeff's working on the RFP and then beginning of phase two sometime in May. So with that, turn it back over to you, Mr. Jenk. Questions? Thank you.
Great. I would like to thank Kimberly Horn for hand holding the MAC to go through all the process. A lot of those process, in my mind, is due diligence. You do need to turn every pebble to know all the options before you could determine your approach. And I would like to just quickly annotate on just the final slide, previous slide, Eric, please. So this is the recommendations that the immediate next phase, we're gonna have something, a system develops, okay, it's a tool. And it is map-based, but it needs to have some functions allowing us to ingest these data, and not just for once, because the next time, because we're gonna make it easier for the agency that they just give us another list. So there has to be functions allowing us, when we import it, it quickly point out discrepancy that we could quickly reconcile, right, for our intended purpose. And like Doug described that with that core system in place, there will be two user accessible interface. One for each of the agency, you get to see your own assets. And that interface would also allow you to provide manually, electronically manually, the spreadsheets or a list. And the other interface is on the MAC public website, that with all these great work we do, we want the public to know that now we could see what we have collected in the region and all that. Right. So like Doug mentioned, as indicated on this slide, that we must have this basic system in place before we could do anything else. So the performance, how we use this information for performance matrices and investment support and all that, and that is the subject of the next one. The last bullet concerned the automation. We originally expressed high interest in some kind of data integration approach, but this recommendation is a realistic one. Consider we have 27 member agencies, but only 12 regional TOC or TMC out there. So even you do all the integration possible to all the sources of control system, you still don't cover the entire region. So it does not make sense to do it in this initial deployment, which we could only present like, hey, this is half of the region, right? Not to mention that the high price tag involved, like Doug suggested, just because of the different type of system, traffic signal, video control, and everything else to do the full automations. I mean, that is still our hope, especially for getting things that has tons of attributes, such as signals. Those still make sense because as the member agency remember, before the COVID, we went through a run of asking you to provide traffic signal timing data for our modeling efforts. And that one run of effort took about 6 months, not because you don't want to do it, because there's a lack of a good way of doing it. And many agencies ended up print from your ATMS that we got like 56 pages of PDF file for just describing one traffic signal. And the stuff we need are most likely scattered somewhere in there. But so that's still an appeal that, if in the future that we have to find a way to share these costs, maybe like what Doug said, the National Pool Fund, that many agencies express interest doing the similar things, that we will all, chip in and reaching that. So that is still a goal, but we put it at a lower priority. And Eric, if you go back one more slide, and one more, that diagram, and I know these flow charts sometimes could be intimate, very intimate. So I want to explain that when we do this first batch of implementations, that we want to be easy with the agencies in terms of submittal requirements. Okay, there will be a number of flexible options, and or just export your existing database in a spreadsheet as long as you have these columns and all that. And so that's what we're gonna do. But the first phase is gonna involve manual collections, and in our upcoming release of RFP, we will have budget set aside to have this manual process. And again, the goal is to minimize your burden of the agency to provide this data. One thing in the very middle is the conflation process. And that's actually a really important technical requirements. So think that big blue rectangle being that tool, allowing us to put things in, reconcile and do things, edit, export, and all that. But the conflation simply means in the GIS that when data are stored in different layers, the source of the data, when they got the position information got put in, you may be using a different source base map. And therefore, they aren't all aligned together. Conflation is a process that you use one base map, common base map. So when you get these different GIS layers, you snap them onto the same base map. And with that, you could do a lot of logical operation. You could define a segment, compute accident rate. If you have the individual accident events as a layer, you could re-aggregate the IMRICS or here travel time, and that give you that particular segment travel time information. So that is an important function that we need to have. And with that function, we will be compatible with other MAC, Ted Brown, who also does performance measurements, is a performance measurement program. They do the same, we're gonna do the same fashion. So everything that they have in their database will immediately become available to us, and vice versa.
Right.
So
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention
No
that.
worries.
That is a very important element that other data sources that MAG collects, like crash records, can be correlated with the presence or absence of ITS assets. Sorry, I skipped over that.
So with that, I'd like to thank Kimberly Horn for doing a great study that I've learned a lot in the process, because I came in with the pre-notions, but I got educated of what's realistic, and I think we have a good plan to proceed. I'd like to open up for any question.
Yeah, I want to add two comments. First of all, Doug from Kim Hong is doing a great job. Based on my experience with the Federal Highway, try to establish the ITS data hub has been very challenging for many different regions. Not to mention data specification, not to mention is a GEO linear referencing system with different coordinates. So this is a great effort. The second one I want to echo here is at ADOT, led by ADOT TISMO Group, Adam Karin, who is also chair of this ADOT Work Zone Mobility Safety Committee. He's leading a very similar effort. It's called the Spatial Work Zone Database, and with also a significant amount of the investigation investment in the next 2 or 3 years. So please try to work with them together, because they are concerned about outside of the region here. For example, city of the Bullhead, they have many signal needs to be integrated in a unified database. So I think that a joint effort, good possibility of collaboration there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks to Dr. Joe. That's a great comment, especially on the ADOT effort. Want to point out that what Ted Brown of MAC has started, he has used the ADOT linear referencing system. And that's what we will use to achieve the compatibility. So theoretically, but I'm going to reach out to Adam to let him know about our efforts. And so there will be hopefully the technical compatibility of these data. Whatever we have here will be readily, available to them for use. Vice versa, we could get some work zone information as well.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions with that presentation. Are there any other members that may have any questions or comments? I know that I am also excited about this project. I mean, we have some things internally as well where through Centrax, we had our engineering staff that were hoping to get it where we could take stuff directly, out of Centrax and import it in, to Synchro so that they could use it, and trying to get that, data in a uniform, manner that would easily be transferred over. And Gary wrote a script for that here, and it made a huge difference. And if we can do something like that regionally so that I'm not printing off PDFs of timing sheets and sending them over, that would be wonderful if that was automatically happening. So I do look forward to that. With that, if there are any other questions, this is your last chance. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on then to item 6. And are there any requests by any committee members for future agenda items? If by chance you do come up with something, please don't hesitate sending in those ideas, to a member of MAG staff, or even me, and I'll be sure to forward it on as well. We're always looking for ideas. So with that, we'll move on to item 7. I would like to invite members to share information relating to your ongoing ITS related project activities in your jurisdictions. So I'll just go ahead and go. It says here to go to the room first. Is it okay if I go down the list, or do you guys want to handle the room? Because I have trouble seeing that video on my laptop.
Mr. Vice Chair, you may go ahead and just go down the list.
All right, thank you. Okay, first, I'll just go in the order that they are here in front of me, with Tony, with the City of Glendale. Is there anything you'd like to report?
None on my side right now.
Thank you. Susan, with ADOT, is there anything you would like to report?
Hey, good morning. No update today. Thank you.
Thank you. You, with City of Goodyear, is there anything you would like to report?
No, nothing to report for Goodyear. Thank you.
You bet. Micah, with the City of Mesa, is there anything you would like to report on?
Okay, Mike. No updates.
Thanks. Alyssa, with the City of Chandler.
No updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, with City of Tempe.
No updates today, Mike. Thanks.
And Michael, with DPS, is there anything you have like to report on?
No, sir. Nothing from DPS. Thank you.
You bet. And Hong, with City of Scottsdale.
No update from Scottsdale. Thank you.
All right. I assume there's no other update from Federal Highways. That's just on the list as well. All right. Bruce Littleton, City of Phoenix.
I'll keep it short and sweet. No updates for Phoenix.
Thanks, Bruce. David Lucas with McDOT.
Updates from McDOT. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Raquel with the city of Apache Junction.
No updates from Apache Junction.
Ward Stanford with the city of Avondale.
No updates, Mike.
Thank you. And next is myself. I'm sure there's stuff going on like with all of you, but no updates at this time from me. And then John Kraft, any updates from you from Pinal County?
No, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Next is Tessa with the city of El Mirage.
Nothing from the city of El Mirage.
Thanks. And John with the city of Buckeye. If he's still here. All right, I'll move on with let's see, with Zusong with Dr. Zusong with ASU.
Only update is we have 85 graduate students, undergraduate students this semester. So anyone wants to do the guest speech, please contact me. Okay.
All right. Is that an increase?
Yeah, it's increased from 65.
Oh, well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the cap is 85. So it's already.
It's probably because you're there now. They all want to come. Next is Marty with Valley Metro.
Nothing this month from Valley Metro.
Is there anyone that I may have missed? All right. With that being said, we can move on to the next item. The next meeting of the Intelligent Transportation Committee will be on Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the Chaparral Room for the special ITS committee meeting for the TIP call for project presentations. And that is an in-person meeting. Is there, just for my own sake, is there a virtual option for that? Or does everyone need to be there in person, just to clarify?
Mr. Vice Chair, as of right now, yes, there will be a virtual option until further notice.
All right, just wanted to make sure. With no further business today, today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for everyone coming.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks,
Good
Mike.
job, Mike. Thanks.
And thank you.